Hello and welcome to the Union Pacific Railroad Geneva Subdivision in N-Scale. My name is Daryl Cruz, owner and builder of the layout, and your host for episode 25 of season 2020. This is an operations video featuring coal trains, eastbound and westbound coal trains. We're going to see how they operate over the Geneva Subdivision. Now you may be wondering why we're seeing a manifest train in a coal ops video. But a lot of the operations of coal trains has to do with waiting for other trains, which usually have a little bit higher priority over coal trains. So we start with a manifest train going through River Forest, Illinois, and once it's passed, then it will make way for our first coal train, which is an westbound train with empties for coal mines in Wyoming. Generally speaking, the coal trains across the Geneva Subdivision transfer coal from coal mines in Wyoming and also Colorado and transport them to the Chicago area and other coal plants in Indiana and Wisconsin. This particular coal train is headed up by 3 SD70 ACEs that are made by Fox Valley, and we here see the train going through the metro station in River Forest as it comes through the control point signals. These 3 SD70 ACEs again are made by Fox Valley. I've had them for quite a bit, and they operate very, very well in pulling coal trains. These cars that you see, the empties, are made by Deluxe Innovations, and I've had these cars for quite some time. I think I built them, or not built them, I purchased them in about 2002, 2003, when I first constructed layouts in Rochelle. Here we see the train going across the Des Plaines River between River Forest and Maywood. And yes, the piers are that long for this particular bridge. This bridge is built after the prototype that goes across the Des Plaines River between River Forest and Maywood. I'm not sure if they made them that long because they were anticipating adding more tracks, or if it had to do with the currents of the Des Plaines River, but I built the piers from plaster and made my own molds to fit this particular location. Now, as I said, the coal cars are mainly by Deluxe Innovations, although I've been replacing them with newer cars by Athearn. So you saw some FURX cars and some WEPX cars. The unweathered ones are made by Athearn. But the rest of them, the original ones, are from Deluxe Innovations. Here you see Maywood, which was pretty empty. And now, after going through Maywood, it comes through Proviso. And as you can see, the train is slowing down as it reaches milepost 14 at Proviso. Now, it is on the right-hand side as it goes through Proviso, and of course we'll need to get to the left-hand side at some point in time. But as you can see, it has all red signals here at Proviso. so it will come to a stop. In the background there you can see the classification tracks for the proviso yard. Alright, it is now at a complete stop, and the reason it's coming to a complete stop is because there is another higher priority train, another manifest train that is also westbound that will need to go through proviso before the coal train can cross over to the left hand side and continue westbound. Here we have some SD70s by Cottle pulling this manifest train. Again, this is the proviso yard. You can see the classification tracks, the warehouses that were scratch built for this area. And in the far distance you can see the control tower that was also built after the prototype control tower at Proviso, which I heard was recently torn down. With the manifest train through, our coal train will then be able to cross over into the left-hand side track. The Geneva Sub is a left-hand running division, and that's carry over from the Chicago Northwestern, which was a left-hand running railroad. Has to do with operations around the commuter trains that operate also on the line from Elburn into downtown Chicago. Now you notice there is a manifest train that's also waiting here, an eastbound train. Here we see the coal train heading through the remaining parts of Proviso. You have the engine facilities and some storage tracks. Storage tracks holds a commuter train as well as our excursion trains. Here you get another look at the engine facilities, and you have a Ather and Challenger there. With the coal train through, the manifest train is able to head eastbound. Here we have a combination of a Fox Valley Gevo, an Atlas C38-9, and then another Gevo. And it of course is running on the left hand side, and it will continue its journey eastbound toward Chicago. You can hear a little clicking in the background. That's my new Digitrax Dt602 throttle, which I like quite a bit. The main thing I like about it is that it has dials for the speed control. I have been using Engine Driver, which I also like quite a bit. But I always miss the dial to control the speed of the trains. So I've been kind of transitioning over to using the Digitrax Dt602 throttle. Now we transition to an eastbound coal train. This is a coal train with loads from Wyoming heading toward Chicago. This is a train coming out of Clinton. We're on the western edge of the Geneva Subdivision now, heading east, and we're coming out of Clinton with coal loads for Chicago. And the first thing we do out of Clinton is cross the Mississippi River and head into northern Illinois. This coal train is headed up with two SD70s, SD70Ms, and if you notice in the middle you have an SD40-2 snoot. If you look at it closely, it has a long nose. So we're crossing the Mississippi River and heading into northern Illinois. I also built that that bridge, all three bridges, after the prototype in Clinton, or between Clinton and northern Illinois. And now we're just going across farmlands, past cornfields, through northern Illinois on our way towards the first town of Franklin Grove. Here the eastbound loaded coal train goes through Franklin Grove. Recently did a bit of work here on the roads. Still needs some weathering. These coal cars are mostly by Cottle, but there's also some from Athern, and a few deluxe innovations. They're all WEPX cars, some black, some silver. From Franklin Grove, then we get close to Rochelle and first encounter the Global 3 in Rochelle. Global 3 has recently been closed down and is no longer in operation, but I am modeling about 2014, which is when we moved away from Rochelle. And so on my layout, the Global 3 intermodal yard is in full operation. You can see some trucks entering and departing the intermodal yard. And then of course you have the classification tracks and the loading and unloading area, which you will see a little bit later in a little bit more detail. Here's the engine facilities at Global 3. As our eastbound loaded coal train goes past Global 3 as well as cornfields around Rochelle. As you can see, the coal train is slowing down a bit as it has a red signal at milepost 78. From Global 3, it enters Rochelle proper. First comes upon the Del Monte warehouse on the western edge of town. And the coal train comes to a stop at milepost 78. Here you can see the signals and the train comes to a stop. The reason it's coming to a stop is because there's an intermodal train heading out of Global 3. And being a higher priority train, the coal train has to wait as the Global 3 intermodal train takes the crossover and crosses in front of the coal train and heads east through Rochelle toward Chicago. This is a Canadian National train, which is headed up by a UP locomotive because of the signaling system that's used on the Geneva Sub. They use in-cab signals, and so they not only see the signals proper on the ground, but they also have signals in the cab. So all the foreign road trains that happen to travel on the Geneva Sub have to have a UP locomotive at the head end to read the cab signals. So this is a Canadian National train that using Global 3 is able to avoid the congestion of Chicago. So it will bypass the intermodal yards of Chicago. Here you can see Rochelle proper and the crossing with the BNSF, as well as the power plant, the old Del Monte warehouse, the water tower, neighborhoods, and so on. Here we go back now to the westbound empties, which have gone through Proviso and now head through the suburb of Elmhurst and past the Metra station in Elmhurst. From Elmhurst, it continues westbound until it gets to the suburb of Wheaton. Wheaton is an area that I have a lot of work to do on. I think after I finish with Franklin Grove, I'm going to be doing some work here, putting in some parking lots and for the warehouses and streets and buildings. But right now it looks pretty desolate. As you can see, it also is meeting the Canadian National train that just journeyed from Rochelle all the way to Wheaton. Here you can see the newer Athearn cars. I like these coal cars quite a bit. I did though remove the couplers from the trucks and then body mounted them for operation's sake, and then also to bring the cars closer together, which was one of the flaws of the Athearn coal cars. Alright, this eastbound loaded coal train has been waiting for quite some time. There's been, in addition to the CN train that crossed in front of it, there's been a number of other trains that it's had to wait for. So it's been waiting here for about a half hour or more. But it finally gets the green light to proceed through Rochelle and we'll get a good look at the diamonds in Rochelle and the railroad park. Here you can see the diamonds, the crossing with the BNSF. And we also get to see the meeting of the two trains, the Eastbound train and the Westbound train. Eastbound taking coal loads to Chicago, the Westbound train taking empties back to Wyoming. When we lived in Rochelle, there were a lot of coal trains. It was probably the most prevalent type of train that ran through Rochelle. But I think things have changed quite a bit since we moved in 2014. The number of coal trains has been reduced dramatically as they continue to close down the coal plants in the Chicago area. Right now we're on the eastern part of Rochelle as we see the Eastbound train continuing to head out of Rochelle and cross the Rock River. These cattle cars run very well. I have kept the couplers on them. And now we transition back to Rochelle and we'll pick up the westbound empties, continuing across the Geneva Subdivision. We've kind of gone to a drone view here. There will be a little more shaking. But I like to use the drone view when we go through the intermodal yard in Global 3. It also just gives a different perspective a little bit. Allows you to kind of follow the train a little bit smoother, although there is shaking, but as far as transitioning, kind of just stay with the train all the way as it travels. Best thing about the drone view is it allows me to get the camera out over the layout, which gives a little bit better view of the layout. Especially as it goes past Global 3 where the main line is back behind the cars in the classification tracks. This gives you a good view of the loading and unloading area also, and the classification tracks, as well as the train going through on the main line. The check-in booths that you can see there, the check-in and check-out booths are built from scratch. Was able to get to Global 3 and take some pretty good pictures of the actual booths there, and built them from scratch. The video sheds are from Rick's Products From Global 3, we now head westbound through Franklin Grove. You can see some of the work I have yet to do on Pittsburgh and Sons there. That grain silos need a little bit of work. Also need some weathering there, and need to add some details at Consolidated Grain and Barge silo there, as well as some work on this farm. But from Franklin Grove westbound, we're going to be just heading through some northern Illinois countryside and past the cornfields as we make our way towards the Mississippi River. See, we have a green signal to head across the bridge and across the river. As we cross the bridge, we meet up with an intermodal train pulled by a trio of SD70s. And now we're in Iowa, heading through Clinton, which is the westernmost point of the Geneva Subdivision. As you can see, I have quite a bit of work yet to do here in Clinton. The main areas I need to work on yet are Maywood, Clinton here, and Wheaton. So when I finish up with Franklin Grove, those will be the next areas I'll be working on. As we see both trains cross the Mississippi River. Need to do some serious weathering on those Catherine cars. This brings us to the completion of the empties coal trains run on the Geneva Subdivision. We do pick up, though, the loaded coal train heading eastbound toward Chicago, moving through the very desolate Wheaton. I think this will be the next area I'm going to work on. It looks the worst. So hopefully it'll look much better once we get some roads and buildings in place and trees. There will be a metro station there, as well as the warehouses that you can see right now. There's also going to be a siding added here for the warehouses. And here we're continuing eastbound towards Chicago between Wheaton, now heading towards Elmhurst. Looks like we have a green signal. Metro station in Elmhurst. The silver cars on this loaded coal train are the Cotto cars. The black cars, some of them are IBF. I think that's right. Were made quite a while ago, and then the others are Deluxe Innovation. From Elmhurst, then we head through Proviso. And we again have the train beginning to slow down, as it does have a red signal at milepost 12 in Proviso. There you get a good look at the Proviso control tower, as well as the walkway across the main tracks, and also have the administration offices there at Proviso. As you can see, we have red signals here, so our eastbound loaded coal train will come to a stop. And here we can see the reason for the stoppage. It's a westbound Norfolk Southern train heading from Indiana into Proviso Yard. Now in this case, it does not have a UP engine in the lead, and that's because the cab signals only go from Proviso westward through Iowa and beyond. The Geneva sub goes all the way to Chicago, but the trackage from Proviso to Chicago is not owned by the Union Pacific. It's a joint ownership. I don't know what all the owners are, but the Norfolk Southern trains are able to run from the Chicago yards to Proviso without UP power. And here we have a Norfolk Southern train heading into the Proviso yard. With a Norfolk Southern train safely in the proviso yard. The coal train will patiently wait for the signal and the turnout to be thrown so that it can start up again and continue towards Chicago. Coal trains are both 40 cars in length. They are usually the longest trains on the layout, although sometimes an intermodal train will turn out to be a little bit longer. Here you have some Athearn cars on this train also. The silver ones that have not been weathered yet. And here you see another unfinished area of the layout, Maywood. And from Maywood then we head into, or across, the Des Plaines River, and then through the Forest Preserve and into River Forest. And now we are at the easternmost end of the Geneva Subdivision, and the end of the loaded coal trains run across the layout. So we were able to see both trains, eastbound and westbound, continue across the Geneva Subdivision and interact with other trains on the railroad. I certainly hope you have enjoyed this video. Appreciate any comments that you leave, and be sure to like the video and subscribe. Also, make sure you take some time to follow me on Instagram and Twitter. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day. Take care.